Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Off the Bench podcast. My name is Robert Tellers, and I'm going to be talking about the Saturday and Friday night games in college basketball that just happened this weekend. It was a fantastic weekend. So many great games, so many great endings, so many results that are very, very helpful to know going down as we get closer to Selection Sunday. We are now 5 weeks away from Selection Sunday, which is crazy. I mean, this season is absolutely flying by. But that being said, I mean, there were some great games, some great matchups. I remember I told my roommate after pretty much all the games were over, this was the best college basketball weekend that I remember watching in a really long time. And he turned to me and he said, Robert, I feel like you say that every single weekend. Like, I feel like every single night you're watching college basketball and you say, wow, this was an amazing night of college basketball that I don't think could be topped. And that's just the truth of it. Like, college basketball is so much fun. It's so awesome every single night. There's great games and there's great storylines. And that's what I'm here to talk about. And of course, we have to start nowhere else but in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where the North Carolina Tar Heels took down the Duke Blue Devils at the buzzer, 71-68, to hand Duke their first loss since, I believe, December, when they lost in New York to Texas Tech. This game was wild. I mean, absolutely wild. It was so awesome that we got just an amazing finish and an amazing game out of Duke, Carolina. Of course, this game is always awesome. It's the biggest rivalry in all of college basketball and one of the biggest rivalries in all of sports. And again, once again, it 100% delivered. I thought it was really interesting how this game went. Like it was really back and forth in a way, but also not, because North Carolina, the only time they led the entire game was at the very end. Like when Seth Trimble hit that three in the corner, that was the first time North Carolina led the Duke Blue Devils the entire game. Like that was literally it. And Duke had control of this game for pretty much most of the time. They started off the game on an 18-5 run. Like they just from the tip immediately went up 18-5. Their defense was all over the place. Cam Boozer was balling. Dame Sarr had a great first half and was really consistent this game, one of his best scoring games of the season. And I just felt like Duke had control. They were up 18-5. They sucked the energy out of the building. And then all of a sudden, UNC mounted a comeback. And they tied it up. And then after that comeback, Duke went on another surge to end the first half. And then they went up 12 at halftime. It was 41-29 at halftime. So two separate times in the first half, Duke had a 12-plus point lead. And in the second half, it was the same story. After being up 41-29, UNC began to chip away and chip away and chip away. And then they brought it back to 6 points with a really close game with about 8:23. And then from that point forward, it was pretty much all Carolina. They ended the game on a 9-0 run to take down the Blue Devils 71-68. Um, I have to give a shout out to North Carolina at first. You know, I've got a lot to talk about with Duke. I really do. But I have to talk about North Carolina first because they won this game and they beat Duke, something that no ACC team's been able to do this year. So shout out to Caleb Wilson, 23 points, 8 for 12 from the field, 0 turnovers, which was big for him. To me, the most impressive part about Caleb Wilson is how efficient he is and how selfless he plays. Like Caleb Wilson has been the best player on every single basketball team that he's been on his entire life. Whether he was a kid, whether he was a middle schooler, high schooler, whatever it is. And he's the best player on this team right now also. And yet, despite all of that, he's still playing selflessly. Like usually when you're the best player on your basketball team and you have been forever, you start to want the ball all the time. And you're saying, I'm going to go win this game. I don't care what my teammates are doing. This team is about me. I'm the one that's going to give our team the best chance to win. So me, 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 me. But that's not how Caleb Wilson plays. He doesn't force shots. He doesn't play too aggressively. He's just efficient. He takes smart shots, and he's even a good passer. So that's the most impressive part about Caleb Wilson to me. Also, he's a great defender. Seth Trimble, of course, hit the big time three at the end of the game, but he did have 16 points in this one, was 5 for 7. Again, North Carolina didn't force very many shots. They didn't take a lot of bad ones. They played very smart in this game, and that's something you have to do against Duke because their defense is so electric and it's so good. And if you start getting too aggressive and if you start getting off rhythm and forcing shots and turning the ball over, it's just going to be game over because Duke is a defensive focused team and they just suffocate you. UNC, I mean, one of the problems that I've always had with North Carolina, like the reason that I don't think this team is elite is that they don't have a dominantly good point guard. Like that's been a problem all season long. It was Kyan Evans who started most of the year. He's kind of on the bench now, so they're sort of working a bunch of guys that handle the ball. but they didn't really need one in this game. I mean, UNC only had 9 assists in this basketball game and 7 turnovers, so it's really bizarre the way that they play. But they kind of worked through Caleb Wilson. They worked through Henry Visar, who is awesome. I love Henry Visar. And then they just kind of try and get out in transition with Seth Trimble and sort of manifest buckets that way. Another really weird thing a weird stat about this game was that North Carolina only had 7 team fouls the whole game. Like, they just fouled Duke 7 times, which is nuts. I just thought that was really interesting. They did a great job in the front court, not fouling, playing smart, again, playing so disciplined. UNC played so disciplined in this game, which is so hard to do when it's a big time rivalry at home at night, when the entire focus of the nation is on you. Like, the Winter Olympics were going, and of course the Super Bowl's it's today now, so people were talking about that. But pretty much most of the sports world, the biggest story of Saturday night was Duke Carolina, and Carolina just didn't let it get to them emotionally. They played really well. They battled through adversity, and it was very impressive. So I said earlier this week that North Carolina is overrated, and they're not a great basketball team. I guess I have to take that back. You just beat Duke 71-68. So it's a very impressive win. Great job by the Tar Heels, and they are now, I think they're still second in the ACC behind Duke, but they have the head-to-head over them. Of course, they'll play again in Cameron Indoor later in the year, but great win for Carolina. Now I'm going to talk about Duke, because this was fascinating. I have a couple stats about Duke that are just unreal to think about. So Duke scored 62 points. They got their 62-point bucket. I think Cam Boozer hit a 3 with 8 minutes and 23 seconds left in the game. Duke finished the game with 68 points. So they scored 6 points in the final 8.5 minutes of this game after being up 62-53. So they ended the game giving up a 18-6 run to lose. They did not score a single point in the final 2 minutes and 51 seconds of this basketball game. Does that sound familiar, Duke fans? It kind of sounds a little bit familiar, because if you think about it, the last 4 games that Duke has lost under Jon Scheyer, dating back to last year, they lost to Carolina. Of course, they lost to Texas Tech early this year in Madison Square Garden. They lost to Houston in the Final Four, and they lost to Clemson on the road. Those are the last 4 games that Duke has lost. And every single one of those 4 games, Duke had a lead, a pretty substantial lead at one point in the fourth quarter, or not the fourth quarter, but late in the second half, and they let the other team come back and mount their way back into the game, and then failed to make big-time shots towards the end of the game, and they lost because of it. That's what happened in Clemson. Cooper Flagg slipped and fell down. That's what happened against Houston. They turned the ball over a couple of times. Of course, Houston had the amazing comeback, and then Cooper Flagg missed a big-time shot at the end to win it. Against Texas Tech, they let Christian Anderson go absolutely nuts, and Cam Boozer couldn't hit the big-time shot at the end. And then against Carolina, 0 points in the final 3 minutes almost of game time, and they let Carolina go 18-6 at the end of the game to take this one away from them. So my hot take about this game, I'm going to have a hot take about every single game that I talk about. The hot take about Duke is that Jon Scheyer has a choking problem, and it will keep the Blue Devils from winning a national championship until one of his players can finally step up and make a big-time clutch shot. It hasn't happened yet. But it's just interesting. It's a trend. This is how Duke loses. If you look at Duke and you say they're invincible, they're not invincible because of this problem. They keep giving games away at the very end because they're not coming up with big-time shots, and the other teams are. It's really just that simple. And Duke is fantastic the first 15 minutes of the second half and all of the first half. So the first, I guess it would be 35 minutes of game time. They're awesome. But those last 5 minutes is where they've really been struggling under Jon Scheyer, at least the last couple of years. So that's just interesting. I mean, Duke should have won this game, in my opinion. I think they 100% should have won this game. They out-rebounded the Tar Heels 38-26. I mean, they pretty much dominated in the front court. Cam Boozer had 11 rebounds. Pat Ngungba, even though he fouled out, didn't play his best game, still played great. They won the turnover margin. They were 7 for 19 from 3. It's not like they had a bad shooting game. Dame Sarr was on fire. Isaiah Evans wasn't fantastic in this game. He was only 4 for 14 from the field. But still, I mean, if you're Duke and you win the rebounding battle and you win the turnover battle and you shoot well and you get 24-11 out of Cam Boozer, you should win this game. And you were up by 9 points with 8.5 minutes to go. There was one stat in this game. Like, this is the first time that Duke has ever been trailing or has ever led a game by 12 plus points with a certain amount of time left and lost in their entire history of their program. So this was a historic collapse from Duke. It was really bad. And this is something like Duke has been my title favorite since almost the beginning of the season. But it's so hard to pick Duke to win a national title when this kind of thing keeps happening. And then I look and I see other teams. I see Elliot Cadeau hitting huge shots for Michigan late in games. I see Braden Burries just turning it on when it matters the most for Arizona. I see even Seth Trimble for North Carolina hitting big time shots. I see Kingston Flemings at Houston hitting big time shots. And I don't see anyone from Duke really quite stepping up and making those big time shots when they matter the most. I understand Cam Boozer's going to win National Player of the Year. He's awesome. He's amazing. He should have a great career in the NBA. But he didn't make the big time shots in this game. He missed like 2 or 3 layups towards the very end that would have put it away. And it hasn't been there for Duke. So, again, great win for UNC. The field storming situation, I'm not going to talk about that. I don't want to talk about any drama or things like that. But great scene for the Tar Heels at home. It was great for them to get that win. Let's move on to Friday night. What a game this was. UConn and St. John's. I was so happy to watch this game. This game has been hyped up and talked about all offseason long. We've all been waiting for it. It looked like it was going to be a little bit of a letdown because St. John's really wasn't playing up to expectations throughout the rest of the season. But they won 8 games straight going into this game, and they just got their 9th in a row, taking down UConn 81-72 at the Garden. This was just all that you could possibly ask for a Big East basketball game Friday night at the Garden. Gus Johnson on the call. Yeah, Dan Hurley versus Rick Pitino. You could tell they both wanted to win so badly. Both of them on the sidelines were going nuts all game long, as they usually do. And there were so many awesome moments in this game. Silas Demery just absolutely put Zuby Ejiofor in the basket in the second half. Caravan had some big-time shots in the first half. Solo Ball couldn't really get going, but Braylon Mullins played awesome. And then on St. John's side of the ball, Dylan Mitchell just shot himself with adrenaline before the game because he was going absolutely crazy out there. It felt like every single point that he had was a dunk. He had 15 points in this game, 7 for 9 from the field. He was dunking everything. He was literally playing like a man possessed. Zuby Ejiofor had 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. But my favorite part of this game was watching Dylan Darling come off the bench, little 5'10" Dylan Darling, and hit big time step back threes to further distance St. John's from the UConn Huskies. This was such an awesome game. I loved watching it so much. I'm going to say that about a lot of games that happened today because it was an awesome Saturday. It was an awesome weekend. This was on Friday night, but it was spectacular. The Johnnies have officially won 9 in a row in the Big Ten. Then they're a great team. They really, really are. They completely out-turnovered UConn, or they forced more turnovers than UConn did. They forced 15. UConn only forced 10. They got out in transition a lot. And when St. John's gets out in transition, just look out. They got Dylan Mitchell. Isaiah Sellers is so athletic down there, and they're just tough to guard. And then, of course, Zuby Ejiofor. The problem with St. John's is they don't have a point guard. It's really hard to win basketball games if you don't have a point guard. But if you could just work through Zuby Ejiofor and he can have 7 assists and 3 turnovers and put up 21 points on 6 for 10 shooting, it doesn't matter as much. The main marquee matchup in this game was going to be Terrace Reed Jr. versus Zuby Ejiofor down in the paint. And Zuby won that matchup 100%. Terrace Reed got in foul trouble, so that helped too. But still, it was an awesome performance. St. John's shot the ball pretty well, not spectacularly, but pretty well. And they out-rebounded UConn to win this basketball game. It was phenomenal. I'm a big-time proponent of the Johnnies. I love this team. Rick Pitino's got them going in the right direction. It's a lot of fun. But my hot take about this game is going to be a little controversial. And listen, these hot takes is just me coming off of watching the game pretty much right away. I've had a little bit more time to think about this one because it was 2 days ago. But still, these hot takes, I don't 100% completely agree with them. This is just me firing off the top of my brain. So I might lose some people on this. But my hot take about this one is that UConn is the most overrated team in the country. I know, it sounds crazy. That sounds absolutely nuts. And it's supposed to be. It's a hot take for a reason. My hot take is that UConn's the most overrated team in the country, and they are not a national title contender. Just hear me out, okay? Just hear me out. I promise I'm getting somewhere with this. The main reason for this is their inconsistency on offense. They're not even top 20 in KenPom in offensive efficiency, which is not the worst thing in the world. But that's not national title contending UConn. That's not how we usually watch UConn teams. Even last year's UConn offense, the team that was an 8th seed, in my opinion, was maybe more consistent and more efficient than this year's offense. At least statistically, this UConn team has a big turnover problem. They are 265th in the country in turnover margin. I mean, that's the stat per ESPN. It's just what it is. I mean, they turn the ball over a lot. It's just sort of the way that this offense it works. They don't have a lot of protection for the basketball. They're also a little small down low. I know Terrace Reed is awesome. He's physical. He's a great basketball player, and he's a great center. But he gets in foul trouble a lot. And when he gets in foul trouble, they have to rely on the true freshman, Eric Reeby, who is 7'1", but he is not as coordinated and he's not at where he needs to be at this moment in time to be the big time 5-man for the UConn Huskies. He's got great potential. He's just not there yet. So without Terrace Reed and with the inexperience of Eric Reeby, the next tallest guy on UConn is Alex Caravan, pretty much. At least that gets substantially good playing time. And that leads to them getting out rebounded. I mean, they get out rebounded a lot and they turn the ball over a lot, and it just leads to inconsistency. And I look at this UConn team and I want to believe in them. Like, I really want to believe in Braylon Mullins. I think he's a great basketball player. Alex Caravan's an awesome leader and one of the best role players in the country. Solo ball is so much fun to watch. Silas Dimmeray, I feel like he's getting better and better. And Terrace Reed is phenomenal too. And it's Dan Hurley. How can you not trust Dan Hurley? I just look at the efficiency numbers and the turnovers and the height, and I have a lot of doubts about UConn. Their defense is phenomenal. I get it. And they have skill, and 100% they do. But if I'm comparing UConn to Arizona and to Michigan and Duke and Houston, I think they're one rung below those teams, in my personal opinion. Am I getting way too aggressive here? And can I be completely wrong? Yes, that is very possible. But I just think UConn's a little bit overrated. That's all I'm saying. That is all I am saying. And it is hard to be not overrated when you're the number 3 team in the country and a national title contender. Because guess what? Only one team is going to win the national title. A lot of people think it's going to be UConn. I am not on that train. I don't think it is going to be the Huskies this year. But, we'll see. I mean, they're 6th in the Big East in turnover differential. The Big East has 10 teams. And half of those teams are completely irrelevant right now. So, I don't know. I had my doubts about UConn. I had my doubts about UConn going into this game, and this just kind of further exemplified my doubts. I picked the Johnnies to win, and they did win. I had a lot of picks wrong this weekend. This was one of my right ones. So that was just interesting to see. And then that's just my hot take on UConn. Believe it or not, whatever you want to believe, you are entitled to that own belief. My belief is that UConn's overrated. Anyway, moving on. Houston went on the road to Provo, Utah, and took down the BYU Cougars 77-66. This is another big-time road win for Houston. It's 3 losses in a row for BYU. What is going on with Kevin Young's Cougars? I'll talk about that in a second, but first I got to start with Houston. Houston went on the road against BYU, against a really athletic team in the Cougars, and Kingston Flemings dropped 19 points on 8 for 18 shooting, and Emmanuel Sharp had 14 points on 5 for 10 shooting and 2 for 4 from 3. To me, the most impressive part about this game from Houston, not the most impressive part about their team, not the most impressive part about their season, but the most impressive part about this specific game was the tough shot making late in the fourth or late in the second half by Kingston Flemings and by Emmanuel Sharp to distance themselves from BYU. Kingston Flemings is so awesome. When you watch him, his athleticism doesn't jump off the page. He's not super tall. He's not even a fantastic three-point shooter. He didn't even make a three-pointer in this game. But he just does such a good job getting to his spots, creating space, and finishing through contact. Like, he is awesome. He is so much fun to watch. And then Emmanuel Sharp is just as consistent as they get. Kelvin Sampson has so much trust in Emmanuel Sharp. He's been there for so long, and that's pretty much why. But Houston's tough shot making, the fact that the Cougars have as good of a defense as they have, like the fact that they can hold BYU to 66, and I think they held UCF to like 52 last game or something like that. The fact that they can have that good of a defense with the elite shot making from Kingston Flemings and Emmanuel Sharp is just kind of unfair. Like, Houston is so good, and they're so consistent because they can rely on their guys to make big time shots, and their defense is so smothering and so good. The one problem with Houston is that JoJo Tugler keeps getting into foul trouble. That's an issue, especially when you're going up against front court players that can score and can score consistently. That's why I think they got beat by Texas Tech, JoJo Tugler had like 3 fouls in the first 5 minutes, couldn't play the rest of the first half. JT Toppin ended up dropping something in the 30s, and they lost. I think if JoJo Tugler stays out of foul trouble just a little bit, then they'll have their best defender on the floor at all times, and they'll just completely smother anybody that they play. Moving on to BYU, AJ Devanza played fantastic again in this game, had 28 points, 9 for 14 from the field, 3 for 4 from 3, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and 1 turnover. So just a spectacular NBA-level performance from AJ Devanza. Rob Wright was great again. He had 17 points, 6 for 9 from the field, 3 for 3, perfect from 3. So, I mean, AJ Devanza and Rob Wright had great games. They did. They balled out. They played awesome. And when you have your best 2 players put up great performances at home, at night, usually you're supposed to win those games. Like, usually that's, okay, we chalked that one up for a win. Our best 2 guys showed up. They did what they needed to do. We took down the team. Hopefully our best should be able to beat anybody's best. But this is BYU we're talking about. That's not how this team is predicated off of. BYU is iso ball. We're going to give the ball to our best guys, and they're going to go get buckets, and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. Well, that's not how basketball works. Because even though you have a great basketball game from your 2 best players, not a single other guy on BYU had 7 or more points. And the only other guy that had 7 points was Richie Saunders. And he was 1 for 8 from the field. And that doesn't just happen. Like, Richie Saunders doesn't just go 1 for 8 from the field. Houston completely made a point to shut him down, to stick to him as close as they possibly could when he was running off screens. And when Richie Saunders was shut down, and they said, okay, AJ, you can have your 28. Rob, you can have your 17, but no one else around you is going to get anything. And that just happened. They pushed him off the 3-point line. They did an amazing job at that, and Houston was able to hold BYU to 66 points. That leads me into my hot take. BYU is not a good basketball team. I think they could 100% be a first or second round exit. In fact, that is what I'm predicting for them. I would be surprised at this point if BYU makes the second weekend. Like, legitimately. They don't share the ball. They don't play selfless. They play very selfish basketball. It's all iso ball. They don't get out in transition. I mean, they're just trying to farm highlights. They're just trying to farm NBA scout hype. Like, that's all that BYU is trying to do right now. All you need to do to beat this Cougar team is push Richie Saunders and number 30, I forget his name, push them off the 3-point line, and you've won. Like, that's frankly it. They're small. They can't rebound. And I'm frustrated because I really like this BYU team. Like, last year, BYU was awesome. They were so much fun to watch. They would swing the ball all over the place. They all did their job. They could all shoot. They played selfless, free-flowing basketball. But this BYU team is just stagnant. They're not consistent. They're hard to watch. They're boring. There's nothing nuanced to it. And it's disappointing that they're wasting this much talent with poor coaching. So at least that's my take. Another hot take that I have about this game is that Houston is a Final Four lock, just because they're so consistent on defense and the big time shot making. So I know Houston only won by 11 points. So I'm jumping to a lot of conclusions saying that BYU is a first round exit and Houston is a Final Four lock. Those are just the takes that I have after watching this game. And I have a lot of trust in Houston. I have no trust left for BYU. All my trust is out the window. It is gone. It's just disappeared. But we're going to go to the Big Ten now. And the number 4 game that I'm talking about this weekend, that's how you know it's an awesome weekend, is that the 4th game that I'm getting to is a top 10 showdown in the Big Ten between number 5 Illinois and number 10 Michigan State that went to overtime due to a clutch 3-point shot at the end of the game and then a foul at the buzzer that allowed Illinois to hit 2 free throws to get back into the game. And then the overtime period, Michigan State pretty much owned until the very end when Wagler hit a big-time 3 and then got a steal, and then Illinois had a chance to send it to double overtime at the buzzer, and they just missed. It was Svadimir and Ivicic who had the shot at the end but couldn't get it to go, and with that, Michigan State got a big-time win, 85-82. Michigan State needed this win. They had lost their previous 2 games to Michigan and to who did they lose to this week? Oh, it was on the road. I can't remember. I have so much college basketball in my mind. They lost on Wednesday night to somebody, and then they lost. Oh, it was God, who was it? I have to look this up. This is driving me absolutely insane. I should be able to get this. It was just a big state school, or not a big state, a Big Ten school. Michigan State basketball schedule. God, this is embarrassing. I got to figure this out. Who did they lose to? It was a scrap. Minnesota. It was Minnesota. That's who they lost to. So they lost to Minnesota. They lost to Michigan. They went to overtime with Rutgers, so this was a big time win. They needed this one over an Illinois team that was very, very hot, that had won pretty much, I think they won like 12 straight games coming into this one, so it was a great win for Michigan State. Jeremy Fears was awesome in this game. He had 25 points. He had 26 points and 15 assists, which I feel like is just the average Jeremy Fear game, that he has 15 plus assists. I mean, this guy's out of his mind. Cohen Carr is just not a human being. I'm convinced that that guy is an alien. The fact that he can do all that he can do from an athletic standpoint and still be able to locate the rim and still be a pretty good spot up shooter and still be a good defender is insane. He is awesome. Who else was really great on this team? How about shout out Kerr Dent, I think was his name, coming off the bench, hitting a big time three at the very end. Divine Ogachukwu was injured in this game, so it was a big time. They got a big time step up from Kerr, and just a great win from Michigan State. I mean, the atmosphere was electric. There's a lot of talk about Jeremy Fears potentially tripping David Mirkovich, and people are saying, "Oh, did it happen? Did it not happen? Who knows?" In my opinion, there's just been way too many of these instances from Jeremy Fears this season, where it's did he trip the guy? Did he not trip the guy? Let's argue about it on social media. Like the fact that 4 or 5 of these instances have happened, and that has to lead us to believe that at least one of them was potentially on purpose. I mean, we have to at least believe that. So this is a big time emotional win for Michigan State too. I mean, it was a really close game in overtime. Of course, they had the big time shot at the end of the game to get it to overtime, and then they won it in overtime. But to get a big time emotional win like this over a top 5 team at this point in the season in February, this could be the type of win that completely propels Michigan State to peaking at the right time, into playing their best basketball late into February and heading into March, which is dangerous for the rest of the Big Ten and something that's really, really scary to look out for. So big win for Michigan State. But to me, this game says a lot more about Illinois than it says about Michigan State. So the story about Illinois all year, or at least all month, has been the emergence of Keaton Wagler. He's a guy that was not even a top 150 recruit. No one was talking about him in the offseason. He was like the 4th or 5th best player on Illinois going into the season. I mean, he wasn't even being discussed. And he's absolutely taken over the reins for the Illini. He's their best player. He's been balling out. He dropped like 46 on the road at Purdue a couple weekends ago. He's been absolutely on fire. Well, in this game, Keaton Wagler was 2 for 16 from the field and 2 for 8 from 3. Terrible. He was awful in this game. Michigan State did a great job defending him. So credit Jeremy Fears, credit Kur Tang, and credit Cohen Carr for locking him down for sure. But, I mean, when you're Illinois and your best player goes 2 for 16 from the field, and yet you give yourself a chance on the road against a top 10 team where you have a lead in the last 3 seconds of the game and very easily could have won the game despite that terrible performance from your best player, that to me is so impressive. I think it says so much about how good Illinois' offense is. Even despite Keaton Wagler playing a bad game, Stojakovic had 17 points. He was 8 for 14 from the field, had 7 rebounds. David Mirkovich had 18 points, 6 assists, and 0 turnovers. So even though their best player did not step up, their heart and their soul has been carrying them, who's been putting his team on his back all season long, he was not there. They still had other guys to step up and play big-time basketball. Tommy Slavovicic even played a great game. He had a double-double, I'm pretty sure. And Stojakovic and Mirkovich really took the reins and got them to nearly a win on the road against the top 10 team, which I think is so incredibly impressive. So I was more impressed with Illinois in their loss in this game than I was with Michigan State with their win, which leads me to my hot take. And my hot take is that Illinois is the best team in the Big Ten and that they are a top 2 team in the country and a completely legitimate title contender. And they have, like, by far the best offense in college basketball right now. Like, it's not even a discussion. They are so, so good on the offensive side of the basketball. And it's not just one guy. Like, if you think of the other title contenders, if you think of Arizona, for example, do you think that if Braden Burris or Koa Pete went 2 for 18 from the field, that Arizona would still win on the road at a top 10 team? I'm not comfortable in saying that they would do that. If Cam Boozer went 2 for 16 for Duke, would they even have a shot? I don't think so. What about Michigan with Yaxel Lindeborg? If he goes 2 for 16 from the field, that offense is not nearly good enough to beat a top 10 team on the road. So pretty much every other team that I can think of right now that is a big-time contender, if their best player has an off game and is just completely out of it, There is not a single team that I trust more to still produce on the offensive side of the basketball than I trust Illinois. Like 100%, which is crazy because that is completely different from what their team was last year. And I just think it's a lot refreshing for Illini fans to have such a consistent offense and such a fun team to watch and such an electric basketball player like Keaton Wagler. He's going to be back. I'm not worried about Wagler, but I'm definitely not worried about Illinois. I think they're so phenomenal. They even got out rebounded in this game. Like they got out rebounded by 10 points. Their best player was terrible, and they maybe should have even won this game. They had a lead in like the last 3 seconds. So I'm just still so impressed by Illinois. I know Michigan's great, and Michigan and Illinois play each other soon. I don't know exactly when that is, but it's soon. That's going to be an awesome game, and I just think Illinois is so, so good. I have so much respect and a lot of confidence in Illinois being one of the best teams in the country for sure. So shout out the Illini, shout out Brad Underwood, and shout out Mirkovic for having 6 assists and 0 turnovers in a game where his best wing was playing terrible. We're going to go back to the SEC, to the Iron Bowl, where Alabama went on the road to Neville Arena and took down the Auburn Tigers 96-92. They've won back-to-back games against Auburn, and they won back-to-back games against Auburn in Neville Arena, which is a very tough place to play. So it was a very impressive win for the Crimson Tide. Bama trailed for most of this game. Pretty much the whole first half they were behind, and then most of the second half they were. But they had a second half surge where their guards, Holloway and Philon, and also Amari Allen, just played so confident in this game, at least in the second half. They took a lead and they didn't relinquish it. This was a very impressive win for Alabama. I was very 50-50 on this game. I was not super confident that they were able to come into Auburn and get this big-time victory, especially after looking very poor in recent games on the road. But they did. This is monumental for the Crimson Tide. This could be a great emotional win from them as well over a rival. LeBaron Philon had 25 points in this game. He was 3 for 6 from 3 and hit some big-time three-point shots against the team that he was committed to originally at a point. So that's just an interesting storyline. Amari Allen was 3 for 5 from 3 as well, had 17 points. And it is not easy to... Well, I know freshman class is absolutely amazing this year, but usually it's not easy for a freshman to be that confident as Amari Allen was on the road against a rival in a really close game. Like, he had no semblance of fear out there whatsoever. If he got any room, he was just immediately pulling it. He played with effort on both ends of the floor. Amari Allen is so much fun to watch. If you're a freshman and you want more playing time, play like Amari Allen. Just play with no fear. Stick your nose in it on defense. Get rebounds. Get steals. That's what he does best, in my opinion. He was an absolute baller on the field. But the main story to me, and one of the most just under-talked about stories in college basketball, was Aiden Holloway coming back to his former team against Auburn and putting up 15 points. He had 3 amazing moments. He had a big-time three-point shot where he got fouled and hit the 3. It was a 4-point play towards the end of the game. Alabama ended up winning by 4 points, so that was huge. And then he had just a couple of amazing finishes at the rim. His scoring at the rim has been getting so much better the more that he's played at Alabama. So really impressive performance from Holloway. And then about Auburn, I mean, Auburn's offense looks very jumbled to me. Like, there's no flow to it. There's no consistency whatsoever. With their guards, Auburn likes to play a lot of hero ball, which I understand. You know, the Pearls, Bruce and Steven, obviously they have a very similar philosophy towards basketball. They have a lot of trust in their guys. And a lot of times that works. You know, a lot of times it's Todd Pettiford pulling up on a fast break 4v1 and hitting a big-time 3 to get the crowd going. And it works. And having confidence in your players is a really good thing. But that really only works out if you have a big that can score and that can provide some semblance of consistency on the basketball team. Because if you just have guards and wings just chucking up shots all game long and playing iso ball and trying to score, it's going to work and it's going to produce highlights and you're going to get cool big-time moments. But the offense is just not going to be as consistent as you'd like it to be. That's why Auburn was so good last year, is because the greatness of Janai Broome and the fact that they could just lean on him to put up 25, 30, even 35 points during some games, that let Baker Mazzara and Pettiford and Denver Jones and Miles Kelly to have free reign on the perimeter. But they just don't have Janai Broome anymore. They don't have that consistency down low. So that makes their offense very inconsistent, very splattery, and just kind of all over the place. Like, that's how I would describe Auburn's offense with Keyshawn Hall, with Todd Pettiford. It's very all over the place. It's very inconsistent. And in their defense, they played great in the first half, But a lot of that was just Alabama playing scared, in my opinion. They had a lot of open looks in the first half that they just didn't take. And in the second half, they came out playing a lot more confident, playing a lot more aggressive. And I think Alabama scored like 30 or 37 points in the first half. And then they ended the game with 96. So their second half obviously was a lot better offensively than the first half. My hot take about Alabama is very simple. When Alabama plays against defenses that are very inconsistent, they thrive. Like this Alabama team thrives against bad defenses and teams that are predicated off of offense and not defense. I mean, they beat Illinois earlier this season. Illinois' offense is amazing, but their defense is inconsistent. Alabama was able to get that win against Auburn, a team that's very good on offense and very streaky on defense. Alabama was able to win this game 96-92. They beat A&M earlier this week, a team that gives up a lot of open shots because of their defensive aggressiveness. But when Alabama plays teams that can guard, when they play good defenses like Tennessee, like Florida, the effort just isn't really there from the Crimson Tide. They kind of get smothered and they end up losing those games. So when we're looking at March, we're looking at the bracket, and we see Alabama matched up with a team that's really good on offense but struggles to guard. I might be rolling with the Crimson Tide. But the moment that they have to play a team that gives just consistent effort on the defensive side of the basketball, like a Florida or a Tennessee, I mean, it's going to be tough for Alabama to win those games because their guards are small. They get pushed off their spots. They get contested really easily. And when Philon and Holloway can't get to the spots they want to get to, this Alabama offense really is just drive, kick, drive, kick, drive, kick, shot clock violation. So they're going to need to play teams that struggle to guard if they want to make a deep run into March. And then I don't really have any hot takes on Auburn. I think they're inconsistent. They can win big-time games if Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall just go absolutely nuts. But if they don't have that consistent anchor in the front court to where they can build a deep run in March off of that. At least that's just my opinion. How about another big-time game in the SEC? The Florida Gators absolutely embarrassed Texas A&M 86-67. I just have a quick hot take about this one. To me, Florida is very obviously and very easily the best team in the SEC, and they are definitely a national title contender, at least in my specific opinion. This Florida defense is so good. They are so ferocious. They are so aggressive. I mean, they play with so much athleticism, and it's just like it's so hard to score on Florida. Like A&M had 2 points with 8.5 minutes left in the first half. 2 points after 11.5 minutes of game time. That's nuts. That is a crazy stat. And it just proves that, A&M's averaging like 90 points a game. And Florida just completely shut them down. They just turned the water right off in their own building, too, which is just crazy. It's nuts that they were able to pull that off. So that's just my quick hot take about Florida. They're for real. Tommy Houck played great in this game. Chinyelu has been averaging a double-double. I think he had like 15 rebounds and 11 points in this game. They can even bring Micah Handlockton off the bench, and he can put up a double-double in like 10 minutes. So this Florida team is scary. I don't think anyone in the SEC wants to play him right now. And I think they are very obviously the best team in this conference. But that leads me to the SEC game that I really want to talk about, and that is Tennessee losing to Kentucky 71-74. Kentucky sweeps the Vols in their regular season series. They won at Tennessee, and then, of course, they just won at home in Rupp Arena. This was a big win for Kentucky for a couple reasons, at least that I believe. Tennessee was up 14 in this game at halftime. Like, Tennessee was controlling this game for most of the time. Their defense was playing phenomenal. Nate Alment put up 29 points in this game. He was great. Jacoby Gillespie was hot early, and they took a big-time lead at halftime. It was 15 points at one point in the first half. And then Kentucky, at the second half, they just kept on chipping away and fighting and getting back into the game and out-hustling Tennessee and outscoring Tennessee and out-confidencing Tennessee. And they ended up getting it really close towards the end of the game. And then Colin Chandler had his big-time three, and Kentucky wins 74-71. I think Malachi Moreno has improved a lot for Kentucky, giving them some consistency in the front court, which is really what they need. I think that's kind of what they were lacking early in the season. But the person that has improved the most this season on Kentucky, and the one that I think everyone else, not only in the SEC but in the country, should be terrified of, is Otega Oweh. Do we remember Otega Oweh? He was amazing last year. He was the preseason favorite for SEC Player of the Year coming into this season. And he was that because he was so aggressive and confident, and he just took the reins of games towards the end and went and won them. He had like 3 buzzer beaters last year. He was awesome to watch. And he's pretty much been asleep, or he was asleep, all of non-conference play. He only averaged 14 points, and it just felt like towards the end of games he was passing the ball too much. And I just wanted Otega Owe to take over towards the end of these basketball games in non-conference play. And because of Otega Owe's 14 points per game, Kentucky was 2-4 in non-conference against Power 5 opponents. But in SEC play, he has come alive. Since SEC play has started, he has scored 22, 20, 22, 21, 12, 18, 23, 20, 24, 24, and 21, which is an average of 20.6 per game. And in SEC play, the Wildcats are 8-3, which is so much better than 2-4 the way they started their season against Power 5 opponents. And that is because Otega Owe is finally awake, which leads to my hot take. Kentucky is a top 2 team in the SEC when Otega Owe is confident and when he's playing at his peak. And if the rest of their team is healthy. I'll just say that. This is a very scary team when Owe is playing his best. I wouldn't want to play him if I was a college basketball team in the SEC. And if they can get healthy, if Jalen Lowe can come back. I don't know exactly the injury that Jade Quaintance have and where he's at in his recovery process. But if they can get him back and Otega Owe can play like this, Kentucky can hang with anyone in the SEC, and they can give themselves at least a chance to make some noise in March. I think it's very possible. And then my hot take number 2 is that Nate Ament is a top 4 draft prospect in the NBA. I think he's going to go 4th overall. I think he should go 4th overall. Honestly, I might take him over Cam Boozer. I think he's got a little bit more talent than Cam Boozer does. He's just so good. He had 29 points in this game again. That's 3 of the last 5 games that he has scored 28 plus points for Tennessee. And because of that, the Vols have been playing great in the SEC. They're 4-1 in that span when Nate Ament has been really, really hot. And I just think, he's a 6'10 guard. He can score from almost anywhere on the floor. He's just got so much potential. Like, I really think that any NBA team can use him. I think he could potentially be a superstar in the league. And I would not take him over Darren Peterson or AJ DeBansta. But I think from an NBA talent perspective, he's got more potential, in my personal opinion, than Cam Boozer and than any of the other guys in that draft. Of course, very hot take because that draft class is absolutely loaded. Caleb Wilson's awesome. I get that. Kingston Flemings is so fun. I just talked about him for a really long time. This is a great draft class, but Nate Ament is getting very overlooked, in my opinion. And that leads me to just give a couple more hot takes that I have about some of the other games that went on this season that are or not this season, but this weekend that a lot of people are talking about. First of all, I think Wisconsin's bubble race is the most compelling bubble race in all of college basketball. They are really outside the bubble right now, but they are so much fun to watch. And when Nick Boyd and John Blackwell are playing at their peak, they can legitimately hang with anyone in the country. I thought they should have won this game against Indiana. I thought there were a couple fouls towards the end of the game that were really questionable. But the fact that Wisconsin was able to go to Assembly Hall against a really, really hot Indiana team and put up a fight and send it to overtime and give themselves multiple chances to win, it was really a bummer that they couldn't pull this result out because it would have been huge for their at-large case. But if Wisconsin could get hot, if they could start getting big-time wins, they have a big one on the road at Michigan that's as good of a win as anybody has in the country. If they can get 1 or 2 wins like that and avoid faltering at home against teams like Maryland and Penn State and Minnesota, and they can make the tournament, I think they could be terrifying. I would, if Wisconsin is an 11 seed or a 10 seed, that's a very dangerous 11 or 10 seed to play up against. I feel like no one's talking about John Blackwell and Nick Boyd. I'm here to talk about them. I think they're both fantastic, and when they're playing at their peak, they are nearly impossible to stop. It was a good one for Indiana, too. Lamar Wilkerson played great towards the end of that one, despite not having his three-point shot available. So I think Wisconsin's, again, that's one of my hot takes, the most compelling bubble team in college basketball. NC State is one of the most underrated teams in college basketball. They are running the ACC right now, pretty much. They've won 6 in a row, and that's not just been against pushover teams. They won at Clemson. They won at SMU, and they just beat Virginia Tech. 3 teams that are in the tournament picture right now. And NC State beat all 3 of them. Quadir Copeland is playing absolutely out of his mind. I think Quadir Copeland is the most underrated player in college basketball. He is averaging 8.5 assists per game in ACC play. His last 5 games, he's had 9 assists, and then 10 assists 16 assists, and then 10 more assists against Virginia Tech on Saturday, which is unreal. Of course, they're undefeated in that time span. Darian Williams is still a sleeping giant on this team. He's still inconsistent. He only dropped 4 in this game, but he's getting better and better and better. And, he was a big-time transfer portal recruit. People say, oh, he was awesome at Texas Tech. He was so great. He was amazing. Now he's slowed down and he's not playing as good at NC State. People don't remember that Darian Williams in the first half of the season at Texas Tech was not playing very well. Like, he was very inconsistent in that stretch. It was towards March that he started to improve and improve and improve, to get better and better and better. And that sort of seems like that's happening with this NC State team. I think I'm really excited to watch them play Duke coming up soon. They got a lot of big-time games coming up, but I legitimately think NC State might be the most underrated team in college basketball, and they are definitely a dark horse team that could definitely make a deep run into March for sure. My next hot take, Miami, Ohio got another big-time victory against Marshall. My hot take about Miami of Ohio, they are undefeated. They are 24-0 right now. They will be, this is not a hot take, they will be the last undefeated team in college basketball. I mean, Arizona has an absolute gauntlet of a schedule. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And Miami, Ohio plays Ohio, I think, on Wednesday night on ESPN. It's either Wednesday or Thursday. So Miami, Ohio will be the last undefeated team left in college basketball. But my hot take is that Miami is the most overrated team in college basketball. It's either them or UConn. I believe it's Miami because I think UConn is still great. I would argue that Miami is not a top 10 mid-major team. That's my argument. And you might say that that's insane and that's crazy, but here are 10 mid-major teams that I would 100% say have a better chance to make a deep run in March, better than Miami does. St. Louis, for sure. I think that one's obvious. Utah State has been playing awesome recently. St. Mary's, I 100% think is more physical and is better than Miami. Santa Clara is like 23-3 in the West Coast Conference right now. They are balling. They might have a chance to get in that large spot. They are playing great. San Diego State, when fully healthy, can beat almost any of these mid-major teams. They might be the best out of all of them other than St. Louis. Tulsa has been playing awesome. They just lost to South Florida, but they are like top 60 in KenPom. They're playing great. Belmont is a team that no one is talking about. I think they're awesome. I really love Belmont. New Mexico is a team in the Mountain West Conference. I think that can 100% beat Miami. And then McNeese in the Southland. Their defense has been phenomenal this year. They're a tournament team for sure. They're in top 70 in KenPom. Miami is sitting at like 106 in KenPom. They don't have any impressive wins. They are a couple wrong bounces away from being a 3-loss team that no one is talking about, like Tulsa and like Belmont. They are like top 10 in KenPom in luck. Like, this is a great Miami team, and I love this team, and I love this story, and it's awesome that they're still undefeated. I'm cheering for them every single game. But I don't think that they are one of the 10 best mid-majors in the country, and I think that they are definitely the most overrated team in college basketball, at least in my personal opinion. But now let's talk about a team that's definitely not overrated, and that is St. Louis on here? No, they're not. All right, I'll just make my face bigger. That is the St. Louis Billikens. St. Louis is sitting at 23-1. They just beat LaSalle 82-58. They are amazing. They are the best mid-major in college basketball since Dayton went undefeated in 2020. This team is so, so good. If you think about every single college basketball team since the year 2000, think about the best teams that have won championships, that have gotten to Final Fours, that have been dominant over the regular season in college basketball. You could think of last year's Duke team. You could think of the 2 UConn teams that went back-to-back. You could think of some John Calipari Kentucky teams, some Rick Pitino Louisville teams, even some Mark Few Gonzaga teams. There's been great ones. Take your pick. Think of any team that has ever existed since the year 2000 has played in college basketball. Every single one of those teams does not have as good of a scoring margin as the St. Louis Billikens do in 2025. They're beating their opponents by an average of 23.2 points per game, which is the best scoring margin of the last 26 years. And it's not even close. Like, this team is dominating. They're beating everybody. You might say to yourself, well, Robert, they're not playing anybody. They're in the A10. Of course they're dominating everybody. Well, then how come no one's ever done this before? They are literally having the best statistical season that anyone's had in the last 26 years in terms of scoring margin. I think that this team should be favored to make the Sweet 16. I think they could definitely make a Final Four run. And when everyone hears about St. Louis, it's always Robbie Avila. Robbie Avila is so great. Robbie Avila, he's little Jokic 2.0. He's awesome. He's such a great player. He's only averaging like 13 points a game. I mean, he's awesome. He's super fun to watch. He's the engine of the team for sure. But they have like 9 players averaging 7 points or more, which is by far the most in college basketball. They are so balanced. They have so many guys that can shoot so well. They can rely on pretty much any one of their wings any given night to give them a big time boost. Trey Green is playing so well at the guard position. He's shooting like 46% from 3. This St. Louis team is so good. Even if they don't have a big time performance from Robbie Avila, like they didn't when they played VCU. I think he had like 7 points. They won that game by 30. Like they're just consistently amazing. Like this St. Louis team is not nearly talked about enough because they lost at the buzzer to Stanford early in the season and they're not undefeated. But this team is legitimately the best mid-major team since 2020 Dayton, and there's an argument to be had that they are even better than that team. Like 100% there is. So that leaves me with 2 hot takes remaining until this video is over. The first of those 2 hot takes is about Arizona. And that hot take is that Arizona, they are a phenomenal team. That's not a hot take. They really are phenomenal. They're a national title contender. They are unbelievably good. But they are about to get a major wake-up call in the Big 12. They have only played 1 ranked team in conference play, and that was BYU, who is a very fraudulent ranked team. And then they have played like UCF and West Virginia and Kansas State and all the bottom feeder teams of the Big 12. They are about to play an absolute gauntlet. This is Arizona's upcoming schedule. They're playing at Kansas. Then they got Texas Tech. Then they got BYU again. Then they're at Houston. Then they're at Baylor. Then they got Kansas, and they finished the season with Iowa State. That's a crazy stretch. Like, that is unbelievable. So they're not going to be undefeated for much longer. I feel like a lot of people are treating Arizona like they're invincible and they're never going to lose, and they're easily the best team in the country. I'm excited to see them play against actual competition coming up soon. At Kansas is going to be Monday night. That game's going to be phenomenal. Those are both 2 teams that are so hot right now. So the winner of that, I think, will tell us a lot about where they're at this season. And Arizona, I mean, if you think that Arizona is not going to lose and that they are just easily the best team in the country and they're going to plow over everyone, I get why you think that, because they have been great and they are a great team. But they're about to get a wake-up call for sure in the form of a very difficult slate from the Big 12. And then my last hot take to finish it off is about the Purdue Boilermakers. There's something on the podcast that I refer to as Illinois theory. I've got a lot of theories around here. I got Georgia Tech theory. We got Indiana theory. But this is Illinois theory. And Illinois theory refers to the football team, the Illinois Illini, who were a very solid team in 2024. You know, they won a bowl game. They won 10 games. They were awesome. I mean, they were really good. Or not really good, but they were a 9-3 football team. They were pretty decent. And then going into the year 2025, they returned all of their talent. So pretty much everyone, their starting quarterback, their running backs, their receivers, everyone that made them great, they had coming back. And everyone said, oh, they're going to go from a 9-3 team to an 11-1 team. And they're going to easily make the playoffs. And they're going to be so much better. And they're going to be awesome. And they're going to be really, really, really good. Well, the way that it worked out was that 9-3 team, they were the same team. So I think they went 8-4 and then won a bowl game and went 9-4. Very similar season because it was the same team. Like, you can't expect the same team to just become light years better than they were the year before. It's the same team. And that's sort of what's happened with Purdue. I mean, Purdue returned pretty much all their core with Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, CJ Cox, Trey Kaufman-Renn. All those guys that made Purdue a 4 seed and a Sweet 16 team last year, that core is back. So guess what? Purdue right now is tracking to be a 4 seed and a Sweet 16 team. Major Illinois theory, I mean, it's the same team. It's the same team that's coming back, and people were saying, oh, obvious national title contender, best team in the country. Like, we saw what this team was last year. They were a 4 seed. There's nothing wrong with that. They're a good team. Braden Smith is going to set the all-time assist record, probably. I hope. That would be really awesome. But they're just not a national title contender. We've already seen this team. And they made it to the Sweet 16, and they lost to Houston. They did not contend for a national title. And this is the same team. So I don't know why we all think they're going to contend for a national title. But I still think they're great. Oregon has had a really disappointing season. They almost lost to the Ducks at home in Mackey, which is disappointing. But that's my last hot take. So that's it for this podcast, this instant reaction show. But if you take anything away from this show, it's not that UConn's overrated or that St. Louis is amazing or Miami, Ohio is overrated or that Purdue has Illinois theory. It's not any of that. It is that Jesus Christ loves you. He's always there for you no matter what. If you ever want peace in life, like true peace, Jesus is always the answer. And he will love you no matter what, no matter where you are, who you're with, what you're doing. He's always there for you, and he wants nothing more than to have a relationship with you and just to be with you through your good moments and your bad moments, through your highs and your lows. Um, and this is not me saying that I'm better than any of y'all. I'm not. I'm a sinner just as much as anybody else, and I need your prayers just as much as anybody else does. So if you don't know where to start, or if you're confused, or if you're, what do I do? Just pray for me if you want to, because I would love that. I'm trying to pray for y'all as much as I can. And then you just say, I pray for Robert. I pray that he experiences God's will today, and then you can pray for your family, yourself, your friends, whoever it is. And that will make God so, so happy. And that's what we're meant to be as humans. We're meant to be with God. It's where we're most happy, and it's where he's most happy. So if you want to be happy, then trust Jesus. It really is that easy. So again, thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a great weekend and a great week. God bless, and I'll see y'all later.